facing the disaster that feels like the end of the world. People can do nothing but run desperately. They are completely helpless. The Titanic is already half sunk. The crowd gathers at the ship's bow. The crowd gathers at the ship's bow. Father Thomas stands on the deck, surrounded by kneeling believers. He twice refuses to board lifeboats, choosing to pray until the very end. As long as one soul needs his help, he will stay on the ship. Jack and Rose cling desperately to the railing. As the ship tilts, people with nothing to hold on to slide down the sloping deck, losing control completely. The electrical system fails, plunging the entire ship into darkness. Suddenly the hull begins to break. The massive ship splits in two instantly in the deep blue sea. Salvage ships bring our attention to events 84 years later. A salvage team is searching the Titanic wreck on the ocean floor. Their probe passes lonely glasses, a faceless doll and a broken dressing table, then stops at a safe. People cheer and scream, celebrating with drinks, as if the heart of the ocean is waiting inside. But when they open the safe, they only find a muddy sketchbook, nothing else. As they clean the sketchbook, a beautiful woman wearing the heart of the ocean appears before them. Meanwhile, a 100-year-old woman sees the drawing on TV. After confirming it's real, she contacts the research team. She calls asking, "Did you find the heart of the ocean?" They ask, "Can you tell us who the woman is?" She replies, "That woman is me." The team is thrilled by this discovery. Rose arrives at the base with many bags and boxes. Looking at the sketch that spans nearly a century, a handsome face flashes in Rose's mind. Along with the sketch, various makeup items are also recovered. Touching the things she once used, Rose feels deeply moved. She says, "They look exactly the same as when I last saw them. I, on the other hand, have changed a bit." Gazing at the footage of the sunken ship, Rose's memories slowly come back to life. They will also take us back aboard the Titanic. April 10, 1912. The luxurious passenger ship called a miracle of industrial history, the Titanic, begins its maiden voyage. The lively and noisy dock is filled with passengers of different social classes, all heading toward the dream ship. Then an old car slowly stops in the middle of the noisy crowd. A wide-brimmed hat lifts slightly, revealing a soft and pure face. Rose, in her elegant purple dress, steps out of the car gracefully. Rose is a young woman from a once wealthy family, with her proud fiancé Cal and her mother. She boards the luxurious ship. Meanwhile, Jack, a poor artist, wins a third-class ticket in a poker game. Jack and his friend run to the ship and barely make it aboard in the last 5 minutes before departure. As the captain gives the order, the Titanic sets sail. Excited, Jack goes to the ship's bow, feeling the wind and freedom. At dinner, Rose struggles with her arranged marriage, surrounded by fake smiles and empty conversations. She feels out of place and goes to the deck for air. The sunset gently shines on her, making her look noble and beautiful. At that moment Jack sees Rose and can't look away. Rose returns to the crowd but feels trapped. Listening to the meaningless talk around her, she feels like she's drowning in despair, tears in her eyes. She runs back to the deck. She thinks ending her life might be the only escape. As she steps onto the railing, a voice suddenly calls out, "Don't jump." She turns and sees Jack, who says, "Stay back." Maybe ending her life is the only way to escape this suffocating world. Just as she's about to jump off the ship, he says, "Don't jump." She yells, "Stay back." "Don't come any closer," he says. "Give me your hand, I'll pull you back." She shouts, "No, stay where you are." When words don't work, Jack tries reverse psychology. He says, "You won't jump," she snaps. "How do you know what I'll do? You don't even know me," he replies. "If you were gonna jump, you'd have done it already." Seeing Rose isn't convinced, Jack keeps talking while taking off his coat and shoes. He says he'll jump in after her, but warns, "The freezing water feels like 1,000 knives stabbing you." Hearing this, Rose hesitates. Jack presses his advantage and finally Rose reaches out her hand. He introduces himself. "Jack Dawson," she replies. "Rose DeWitt Burkhater." As Rose tries to climb back, her fancy dress makes her slip, nearly falling into the sea. Rose suddenly feels real fear. Crew members rush over at the sound of her screams. She cries, "Help!" Jack shouts, "I've got you, I won't let go." With Jack's encouragement, Rose uses all her strength to climb back up. By then the crew arrives, taking in the scene. They immediately handcuff Jack. Cal grabs his collar. Furious, Rose steps forward, too ashamed to admit she wanted to die. She lies, saying she slipped, while leaning over to see the propellers. And Jack happened to save her. Seeing Rose's pleading, "Look," Jack goes along with the story. To thank him, Cal orders his servant to tip Jack $20. Rose snaps. Is that all your fiancé is worth $20? Realizing his mistake, Cal invites Jack to dinner, but only to humiliate him. But secretly, Cal wants to embarrass Jack in front of everyone because from Rose's expression he notices something special. To make Rose happy, Cal gives her the engagement gift early, the 56-carat Heart of the Ocean diamond. Touching this expensive gift, Rose feels slightly moved. On the breezy deck, Rose thanks Jack for saving her. She thought Jack would see her as just another spoiled rich girl, but Jack understands her feelings. This makes Rose very happy. Jack says, I was wondering, what could possibly make you want to jump? These words open Rose's heart. She shares all her hidden pain. When Jack asks if she loves Cal, Rose hesitates and can't answer. Feeling upset, Rose starts to leave but then sees Jack's sketchbook. Looking at the detailed drawings, Rose praises them sincerely. You're very talented. You see people, Jack says. I see you. Jack understands everything, like light breaking through Rose's dark life, suddenly showing her a new way. Her sadness disappears. A rose-like smile blooms. She learns from Jack how to spit like a man to express feelings. He says, use your whole body, even your wrist. She copies Jack spitting far into the ocean, just as her mother's group sees them. The ladies are curious about Jack saving Rose, but her mother only sees their class difference. After dressing up nicely, Jack enters the first-class dining room trying to copy rich people's manners. Rose in her black dress is surprised by Jack's transformation. He walks down the stairs, kisses Rose's hand, saying, I saw it in a movie, and always wanted to try it. At the dinner table, Jack says he works odd jobs everywhere, usually traveling on cargo ships. His Titanic ticket was won in a poker game. He got really lucky. This is Jack's first time attending a first-class dinner, though the fancy silverware confuses him. Despite Cal's constant teasing, Jack stays calm and confident. His outlook on life wins everyone over. He says life is God's gift. I don't plan to waste it. You never know what might happen. Make each day count. To making each day count. Cheers. After dinner, Jack slips Rose a note when saying goodbye. Rose follows him under the clock to the third-class decks. A wild party is in full swing to lively music. Rose, who never danced before, lets loose with Jack. They dance wildly and drink heavily. Rose feels happier than ever before, but Cal's servant spots them. Hearing this, Cal flies into a rage. He flips a table in anger, warning Rose to stay away from Jack. Terrified Rose fights back, tears like a rose fallen from a broken vase. She can't escape being rich people's decoration. Her mother insists their noble title is all they have. Marrying rich Cal is their best option because, besides debts, their father left them nothing valuable. Tearing up, Rose says it's unfair. This isn't fair at all. We're women, her mother says. We don't have many choices. Meanwhile, Titanic's owner, Mr. Ismay, pressures the captain to light the last 4 boilers, so Titanic's maiden voyage will live up to its industrial miracle reputation. The tempted captain agrees. Next day, hearing iceberg warnings, the confident captain, trusting his experience, refuses to slow down. Rose notices something troubling. There aren't enough lifeboats for everyone if danger strikes. The designer explains they originally used new hanging columns to fit an extra row of lifeboats, but others thought it ruined the deck's beauty. Before Rose can react to this absurdity, Jack suddenly pulls her aside. Disguised as a gentleman, he sneaks into first class and pours his heart out to Rose. I only have $10 to my name, he says, and nothing else to offer you, but I'm completely lost in you. I won't let go unless I know you'll be happy. Rose replies, well, I'm fine, I'll be fine. Jack sees through her fear of jumping into the unknown, but pities how her spirit withers, trapped by family and society. They've got you in a cage, Rose, he says. If you don't break free, you'll die. Maybe not now, because you're still strong, but someday, Rose, that fire I love in you will burn out. His words strike deep, but pressured by her mother, Rose pushes him away. You don't need to save me, Jack. You're right. He nods. Only you can save yourself. Dazed, Rose sits at the dining table, torn between fear and longing. She's still uncertain, until she spots a little girl nearby, already chained by rules, a mirror of her own childhood. In that moment she decides to smash Jack's so-called cage. Hey Jack, I changed my mind. Hearing this, Jack grins with pure joy. He tells Rose to close her eyes, then slowly spreads his arms, and now Rose feels weightless, free from all chains, soaring like a bird. I'm flying, Jack, she gasps. Later they sneak into a private room where Rose unlocks a safe to reveal the heart of the ocean. She asks Jack to draw a portrait of her. She says, "I want to wear this." Jack picks up his pencil. Stroke by stroke, he captures Rose's beauty. This might be the most beautiful moment of Rose's life. Rose leaves a note for Cal and has Jack put the heart of the ocean back in the safe. Just then someone knocks on the door. Cal's butler arrives. They run into the hallway, dash into the elevator, race through the kitchen, then into the boiler room. Finally they turn and head to the cargo hold. He asks, "Where to, miss?" She says, "To the stars." At this moment their hearts finally connect. Sparks fly between them. But when Cal sees the note and the drawing, he's so angry he wants to tear them to pieces. Then he gets a wicked idea. On the deck, Rose pours her heart out. She says after the ship docks she'll run away with Jack. She'll live life on her own terms. The lookout in the crow's nest, who was joking with his friend moments ago, now stares in shock. A massive iceberg looms ahead. He frantically rings the alarm bell. "All hands on deck, hard to port, close all watertight doors." The propellers slowly stop. The engines reverse. The propellers spin backward. Everything is in place. The crew watches anxiously, praying the ship will turn in time. But the Titanic's enormous size now becomes its fatal flaw, combined with its high speed. It doesn't hit the iceberg head-on, but the ship scrapes along the ice. A huge gash tears open the hull. The ship shakes violently like the end of the world. Seawater floods the cargo hold and boiler rooms. The workers below deck are hit hardest. Small and helpless as ants, they're swallowed by the rushing water. When the officer closes all watertight doors, he traps them with no escape. This saves the Titanic for now, but the real test of humanity has just begun. The water in third class is already ankle-deep. Passengers run in the same direction as the fleeing rats. Meanwhile, Cal is only focused on framing Jack. Seeing the two return hand in hand, the butler slips the heart of the ocean into Jack's coat pocket when he isn't looking, with guards as witnesses. Jack is caught red-handed. This setup makes Rose doubt Jack, especially when she learns the coat was borrowed. No matter how Jack explains, Rose stays completely silent. He says, "You know I didn't steal it. You know me." In just 10 minutes all 5 watertight compartments are flooded. Now no rescue effort can stop the Titanic from sinking within 2 hours. The captain is filled with regret, though he tries to stay calm. He quietly says to Mr. Ismay, "As you wish, we'll make headlines tomorrow." As people frantically put on life jackets, Rose feels like she's gone from a warm fireplace into freezing ice. The man she loves is a thief. Meanwhile Cal, who treats Rose as property, drops his gentleman act. He slaps Rose hard across the face. Reading the captain's distress message, the shocked radio operator pauses, then urgently taps out the code. The Titanic's designer walks numbly through the ship. He never imagined his luxury liner would sink on its maiden voyage. Watching lifeboats lower, Rose's mother nervously says, "I hope it's not too crowded." Rose snaps at her mother's selfishness, yelling that the water is freezing and there aren't enough lifeboats. Not even half. Half the people will die. Cal says the rich will board first, which makes Rose realize his true nature. When he mocks her portrait, she sees Cal's cruelty and schemes wrenching free from his grip. She spits in his face just like Jack taught her. She orders the elevator operator to go down. The swaying seawater makes it hard to see clearly. Rose keeps calling Jack's name over and over the moment she sees Jack. Rose keeps saying, "I'm sorry." She now sees Cal's true nature and knows Jack was framed. Water keeps flooding into the ship. The front starts sinking. They must find the key now. But after searching everywhere, Rose still can't find it. Jack tells her to get help, but the hallway is already underwater. Lights flicker and dim. Rose feels completely helpless. Fear and despair overwhelm her. Even though she's terrified for the one she loves, she forces herself to stay calm. A crew member approaches, mistaking her for an evacuee. Before she can explain, he drags her away in panic. Rose punches him in frustration, clutching his bleeding nose. He storms off angrily. Just then Rose spots a fire axe. She smashes the glass, grabs it, and runs to the third-class gate. The scene shocks her. Pushing down her fear, she wades through icy water to Jack. Can they escape together? Their hope lies with the axe. With Jack's encouragement, Rose takes a deep breath and swings. It works. They break through the locked door, reaching the third-class exit. Chaos surrounds them. Women and children board first. Quick-thinking Jack and his friends bust open a side door. On the first-class deck, screams and pleas fill the air. Lifeboats for 65 hold only 20. They launch half empty. Amid the madness, the crew member pulls out a gun to scare people. This makes things slightly more orderly, but ironically, only after first-class passengers board do third-class passengers get to leave. As the lifeboat lowers to third-class level, impatient passengers cut the ropes with knives. This makes everything completely chaotic. It's a test of human nature. No one wants to leave their loved ones behind, to escape alone to survive. Cal hands the officer a thick stack of money, hoping for special treatment. Mr. Ismay sneaks unnoticed into a lifeboat meant only for women and children. Between dignity and life, he chooses life. Jack and Rose find a lifeboat, but Rose insists on leaving with Jack. She says, "I won't go without you." As they argue, Cal approaches. Seeing Rose in distress, he puts his coat around her shoulders and lies that he found a lifeboat where Jack can go too. Under their gaze, Rose finally boards the lifeboat. At the crew's command, the boat begins lowering. Rose looks longingly at Jack, while Jack's eyes fill with sadness. The ship grows more distant, and so does Jack. As their eyes meet, a flare explodes above Jack's head. His face flickers in the light, while the flare illuminates Rose's face just before shadows cover her. Rose suddenly jumps back onto the ship. This time Rose is foolish but brave. She follows her heart, choosing to stay with Jack. She'll be with him no matter what. He asks, "Why did you do that?" They embrace tightly. Seeing this, Cal finally snaps. He grabs a gun unnoticed and starts shooting at them wildly. He chases them all the way to the ship's lower deck until his gun runs out of bullets. Seeing seawater rising past his waist, Cal suddenly remembers the heart of the ocean is still in Rose's coat pocket. Meanwhile, Jack and Rose spot a little boy crying for help and immediately pick him up. After handing the boy to his father, a huge wave crashes in, completely swallowing them. The Titanic is sinking fast. Trapped in the flooding deck, Jack and Rose get swept away by rushing water just before drowning. They barely climb onto a staircase but find a locked iron gate blocking their way. As water reaches their ankles, a steward runs toward them. He initially wants to leave but finally turns back with the key. In his panic, he accidentally drops the key in the water. As the steward leaves, Jack dives underwater. After struggling, he finds the key. Now the water reaches his neck. Under flickering lights, Jack finally unlocks the gate just before icy water overwhelms them. They scramble up the stairs in the chaos of disaster. People push and shove, desperately fighting to escape. As panic spreads, the officer fires his gun to restore order. Cornered, Cal demands the officer honor his promise to let him escape. The officer throws the gun in Cal's face, saying no amount of money can save him now. Step back. Trying to control the crowd, the officer accidentally shoots an innocent passenger. Watching blood spread on the deck, he stands silently, then salutes the passengers before turning the gun on himself. Ignoring his crew's pleas, he takes his own life. Seeing this, Cal turns back. He picks up a little girl who got separated from her parents and pretends to be her father. Shamelessly, he boards a lifeboat meant for women. Seeing the deck now underwater, the heartbroken captain walks straight into the wheelhouse in despair. After locking the door, he regretfully touches the ship's wheel. How can he face the 2,200 passengers, now on his final voyage before retirement? Blinded by fame and greed, going down with Titanic might be his only redemption. By the flickering fireplace, Titanic's designer feels colder than the freezing ocean. He regrets not insisting on more lifeboats. He regrets not stopping foolish decisions. Slowly he sets a clock back to before the sinking, then waits quietly to perish with his doomed dream ship. An elderly couple embrace each other tightly. At least they'll face death together. A mother's gentle voice lulls her two sons to sleep with a bedtime story. An old gentleman sits calmly awaiting his final moments. The cruel sea has swallowed the stern. Amid the chaos, four musicians play bravely until the end, comforting terrified passengers, their final performance lasting until life fades. Even lifeboats can't escape. Now selfish Cal abandons the little girl. As ropes snap one by one, the massive smokestack collapses. The falling smokestack drags the entire stern underwater. Father Thomas stands on deck surrounded by praying passengers. He refused 2 lifeboat chances, choosing to pray until the end. He'll stay while one soul needs comfort. He won't abandon ship. Jack and Rose cling to the railing as the ship tilts violently. People with nothing to hold on to slide down the tilting deck completely out of control. As the circuits short out, the whole ship suddenly goes dark. Then the hull begins breaking apart. The massive ship splits in two instantly, but steel beams drag the bow down, forcing the already submerged propellers to rise again. Jack and Rose carefully climb over the railing and cling to the bow's deck. When the bow stands, vertical gravity takes over. Passengers fall into the water one after another under the quiet, starry sky. Terrified people must face death. Jack says they'll be sucked under by the ship. They must swim hard to reach the surface. "We can do this, Rose. Trust me. I trust you," she replies with Jack's loving encouragement. Rose and the entire ship plunge into the depths. Titanic, the wonder of industrial history, sinks after deathly silence. Rose, in her life jacket, finally surfaces. She desperately calls for Jack, but her voice drowns in the chaos. Worse still, people mistake her for floating debris, pushing her underwater repeatedly. At the critical moment, Jack swims up. He punches the offenders twice, then pulls Rose to a wooden panel. Sadly, it only holds one person. Jack gives the survival spot to Rose while staying in the freezing water. They pin all hopes on rescue, but when a lady suggests going back, everyone stays silent. They pretend not to see, even when their own family needs saving. Minutes crawl by. Some have already closed their eyes forever. Though shivering violently, Jack jokes with Rose, saying he'll complain to the shipping company. "I love you, Jack," she says. "Don't say goodbye," he replies. "It's not time yet. You hear me?" Jack tells Rose she must survive. He says Rose will have many children and live a long life, not die here. Shivering, Rose tightly holds Jack's hand. She can't say a word. "Winning that ticket," he says, "was the best thing that ever happened to me. Promise me, you'll survive, no matter what happens." "I promise," she whispers. Finally, the only returning lifeboat comes to rescue them. Dead silence replaces the desperate cries for help. Lives that were once vibrant are now frozen statues across the vast ocean. Only crew's shouts echo. The chance of survival is almost zero. But luckily Rose is still alive. Seeing the lifeboat's bright light, she slowly lifts herself up. Her frozen lips form a weak smile. She calls out excitedly to Jack. "The boat is here, Jack." Realizing Jack has died, Rose can't believe it. Silent tears fall. Forced to accept the truth, she watches the lifeboat move away. Exhausted, she collapses onto the wood, but Jack's last words about surviving echo in her ears again. Her weak cries can't reach the rescuers. "I'll never let go," she says. "I promise you." Jack sinks forever into the ocean. Rose's frightened eyes grow determined. She finds new courage to live. Using all her strength, she swims to a sailor and blows the life whistle. Hearing it, the crew turns back. Rose is saved. Rose and other survivors are taken aboard the Carpathia. Only 6 out of 1,500 people survive. Rose is one of them. She avoids Cal's search. Rose successfully arrives in America, gazing at the Statue of Liberty in the rain. Without hesitation, she tells the ship's officer her new name. She says her name is Rose Dawson, taking Jack's last name as her own. Perhaps this is the truest form of love. Jack didn't just save Rose's life, he saved her future in Rose's heart. She and Jack are forever connected. "Living fully is the only way to honor their love," she says. "He saved me, but I don't even have a picture of him." Old Rose walks to the ship's stern and climbs the railing, facing the ocean breeze. She drops the heart of the ocean into the Atlantic, the diamond that witnessed their love. She wants to tell Jack she kept every promise they made. She did everything they dreamed of. Rose falls peacefully asleep in her warm bed. The scene returns to 1912. Rose stands aboard the Titanic again. The crowded grand staircase is filled with those lost at sea that night. The clock's hands freeze at 2:20, the exact moment the ship sank. Jack turns around in front of the clock. Amid the crowd's enthusiastic applause and expectant gazes, Jack and Rose hold hands once again.